Marcus Aurelius sits in his tent, watching his empire burn. Accept what you cannot control, he writes. Thousands of miles away, centuries later, Nietzsche reads this and throws the book across the room. This, he screams, is exactly what's wrong with Western thinking. Two giants, two completely opposite answers to the same question. How should we face suffering? The Stoics say, surrender to fate, find peace in acceptance. Nietzsche says, that's dangerous self-deception. One side calls it serenity, the other calls it disguised exhaustion. Who's right? Let's find out. Stoicism emerged in Athens around 300 BCE, but it reached its peak in Rome. Three names dominate: Epictetus, the former slave; Seneca, the wealthy advisor; and Marcus Aurelius, the emperor. Different lives, same message. You don't control the world, but you control your response. Their central teaching? The dichotomy of control. Epictetus divides everything into two categories: things up to us, our judgments, desires, actions, and things not up to us, our body, property, reputation, other people. Suffering comes from confusing the two. When you cling to what you cannot control, you suffer. When you release it, you find peace. Marcus Aurelius writes in his Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This isn't passive resignation, it's strategic focus. Why waste energy fighting the unchangeable? Instead, direct that energy toward what you can influence: your character, your virtue, your inner state. The Stoics didn't preach helplessness. Epictetus was enslaved, yet he became one of history's most influential philosophers. Marcus ruled an empire through wars, plagues, and betrayals, yet maintained his sanity. Seneca navigated Nero's court, one of history's most dangerous political environments, and wrote timeless wisdom. Their acceptance wasn't weakness, it was survival strategy. Enter Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century philosopher who despised passive acceptance. For Nietzsche, Stoicism represented a deeper problem in Western philosophy: the arrogance of philosophers who claim to live according to nature while actually projecting their own exhaustion onto the universe. Nietzsche writes in Beyond Good and Evil, you desire to live according to nature? Oh, you noble Stoics, what fraud of words! Imagine to yourselves a being like nature, boundlessly extravagant, boundlessly indifferent, without purpose or consideration, without pity or justice. How could you live in accordance with such indifference? His critique cuts deep. The Stoics claim nature is rational and orderly, then conveniently define rationality in a way that justifies their philosophy. They say live according to nature, but what they mean is live according to our interpretation of nature. It's circular reasoning dressed as wisdom. But Nietzsche's real target isn't just Stoicism, it's a broader cultural phenomenon he calls the slave morality. This psychology emerges when people lack power and transform their powerlessness into virtue. Since they cannot fight, they claim fighting is bad. Since they cannot win, they say winning doesn't matter. This is ressentiment, resentment that becomes creative and invents new values. Nietzsche's alternative? Amor fati, love your fate. But here's the twist. Nietzsche's version is completely different from Stoic acceptance. The Stoic accepts fate reluctantly, as a lesser evil. Nietzsche demands you embrace it passionately, affirm it ecstatically, want it so intensely that you choose to live the exact same life eternally, his doctrine of eternal recurrence. This isn't resignation, it's passionate affirmation. Let's watch them fight it out. Here are the core clashes. Round 1, on suffering. Stoic.
Suffering is inevitable. The wise person doesn't add to their suffering by wishing things were different. Pain is physical, suffering is mental. We choose suffering by resisting reality.
Nietzsche.
You're teaching people to settle. Suffering is the furnace that forges greatness. Every genius, every artist, every revolutionary suffered and used that suffering. Your peace is just giving up on becoming extraordinary.
Stoic.
And your philosophy produces broken people. You romanticize suffering until people seek it out, destroy themselves chasing some fantasy of the Übermensch. We offer actual relief. You offer exhausting delusion.
Nietzsche.
Relief? You mean sedation? You're the philosophy of old men who've given up. I'm the philosophy of those who still have fire in their blood.
Round 2 on control Stoic.
We distinguish what we control from what we don't. You control your actions, not outcomes. Focus on process, not results. This is liberation. You're no longer hostage to fortune.
Nietzsche.
This is coward's logic. You say I don't control outcomes as an excuse for not trying hard enough. The exceptional person makes outcomes happen. Yes, you might fail, but that's the price of greatness.
Stoic.
No, it's wisdom. The archer controls his aim, not where the arrow lands. Wind happens. We prepare, we act, we release attachment to results. That's not fear, that's clarity.
Nietzsche.
The great archer doesn't release attachment. He shoots again and again until he masters the wind itself. Your philosophy teaches people to quit and call it wisdom.
Round 3 on desire Stoic.
Desire is the root of suffering. Not all desire, but desire for external things you can't control. The sage desires only virtue, only what's within his power. This is true freedom.
Nietzsche.
This is exactly what I'm criticizing. You can't get what you want, so you demonize wanting it. I didn't want those grapes anyway. They were probably sour. You've turned psychological compromise into a philosophy.
Stoic.
We're not suppressing desire. We're redirecting it toward what actually matters. The fool chases wealth, fame, pleasure, and stays forever unsatisfied. We desire excellence of character. That's achievement, not defeat.
Nietzsche.
But excellence of character for what? For sitting quietly while life passes you by? I desire creation, transformation, power over myself. Yes, I'll suffer. Yes, I'll fail. But I'll have lived. What will you have? A peaceful death, having risked nothing.
Round 4 on life's meaning Stoic.
Life's meaning is living according to nature, according to reason, virtuously. We're social creatures. We fulfill our nature by being just, courageous, wise, temperate. This is objective. This is real.
Nietzsche.
There is no objective meaning. That's the terrifying truth you can't face. The universe is indifferent. Nature doesn't prescribe your virtue. So we must create meaning through our actions, our will, our self-overcoming. We become who we choose to become.
Stoic.
And when your created meaning crumbles, when your projects fail, your strength fades, your body breaks, then what? We offer something permanent, character that can't be taken away.
Nietzsche.
Then I'll create new meaning. I'll overcome myself again. Yes, it's harder. Yes, it's scarier. But it's alive. Your permanence is just stagnation. You've stopped growing and called it wisdom.
Here's the deeper truth. Both philosophies preach acceptance, but they mean opposite things. The Stoic says, I accept this suffering because I cannot change it. I make peace with necessity. This is acceptance as release, letting go of struggle. Nietzsche says, I accept this suffering because I choose it. I would will it again and again. This is acceptance as embrace, intensifying affirmation. One withdraws energy from what cannot be changed. The other pours passion into affirming everything, even suffering. Consider losing your job. The Stoic response. This was outside my control. I will not let it disturb my peace. I'll focus on what I can control, my effort to find new work, my attitude, my character. Calm, measured, strategic. The Nietzschean response, this is my test. I will not just accept this, I will use this. I will transform this setback into fuel. I will become stronger because of this. Intense, passionate, aggressive. Both claim to accept the job loss, but one leads to tranquility, the other to fire. So which philosophy actually works? Which one should you choose? Here's the problem. We've been asking the wrong question. Look at Marcus Aurelius, history's most powerful man, chose Stoicism, ruled wisely, died peacefully at 58. But on his deathbed, he said something that changes everything about this debate. And look at Nietzsche himself. Brilliant, revolutionary, transformed philosophy. But he spent his final 11 years in complete madness, cared for by his mother and sister, unable to recognize his own name. Steve Jobs. Zen Buddhist meets ruthless visionary. Was he Stoic or Nietzschean? The answer is neither, and both. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz using a philosophy that sounds Stoic but isn't. He found meaning in the most meaningless suffering imaginable. How? Modern psychology has studied both approaches. The results are shocking. One leads to happiness, the other leads to achievement, but neither gives you both. Unless there's a third way, a secret that the wisest practitioners discovered but never wrote down. It's hidden in plain sight in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. It's buried in Nietzsche's notebooks. It's practiced by everyone from Navy SEALs to Buddhist monks to Silicon Valley CEOs. It's not Stoicism. It's not Nietzschean will to power. It's something else entirely. Which philosophy actually wins? Can you combine them without destroying yourself? What did Marcus Aurelius whisper on his deathbed that his biographers tried to hide? Part 2 drops next. You won't believe what we found. If you want the truth about which philosophy actually works in real life, subscribe and hit the bell. Part 2 reveals the shocking research, the real-world examples, and the secret third way that nobody talks about. See you there.